While we're waiting for everyone to log in, I'll show you guys in case, hopefully you've gotten a couple emails by now. I think what happens is overnight, iLearn generates an email that summarizes both the forum, the Q&A forum, and any announcements that I make to iLearn over the course of the day. So I've gotten 3 different emails asking questions about various things, and I put those here so that everyone can find the answers. And so you just come here and you'll see what the question is, how I explain to solve the problem. The most recent one was about the lab document, because it was unclear to someone, at least somebody, how you, wait, that's the wrong question. Editing, oh, I was in the right one. Editing, I should get my, speaking of which, I ought to pull out some glasses just in case. So there's a question about how to edit the lab document, because when you click on it at first, it opens in Google Docs, but you can't edit what you see when it first opens. It's just like a picture of the document. And what you got to do is at the very top of the screen, you go up and there's in white lettering, it says open with, and you click on that. And the very first option is to open with Google Docs. And as soon as you do that, you can edit like any text editor. It's very similar to Word or to Pages if you use that. And when you're done doing your work in Google Docs, you can save that or download as, I think is your option, as a Microsoft Word document or an Adobe PDF file. So, and either of those file formats are fine for submitting your work. But there's no reason you need to print these labs. I'm hoping that there's no reason to print these labs, that you should be able to do everything electronically. However, if you need to draw or annotate on some images, that could be a little tricky. You probably need to use the draw functions in Google Docs or Word to accomplish that. You guys hopefully find the right tools when you need them. We're getting more people. It's 10:31. We're getting more people logged in here. Oh yeah.
Professor?
You can call me Mary. It's really okay.
Did you want us to turn in the PreLab, or I saw it just said bring to class?
That's right. I want you to first, we're going to use it. We're going to talk about it. And I want to put you in, we're going to try something new. I'm going to assign you to breakout rooms. And you will work in a small group to talk about what you did in the PreLab. And then there's a part that we'll do in class that is based on the video, if you looked at that video. Mm-hmm. I mistakenly said it was the PreLab video. It was actually for class. I changed the wording on that last night.
Okay.
So if you've got it, that's all you need.
Okay.
Okay, so the Q&A, a lot of people have logged in since I said good morning. So good morning, everybody. Feel free, unless you're in a really noisy environment, feel free to unmute yourself and chat. Talk to me, ask questions as we go through all of this. I do want to make sure that everybody's familiar, at least a little bit familiar with Zoom. So I want to try something real quick. I'm going to keep the participants window open and where I can see whether you're muted or not. And I can also see if you answer by clicking on the yes button, the green check mark at the bottom of the participants window, or the red X mark for no. It also has a button for go slower, go faster. I realized last night my internet was totally crapping out, and I realized that I probably need to slow down just so that those of you who have laggy internet can keep up with what I'm pointing to on the screen, because my voice will arrive before the image does. Okay, so so you have go faster, go slower, and then there's a more button. You get thumbs up, thumbs down. I should be showing you my screen. Here, that's what I should do. Stop sharing that and share my, how do I share? Does anyone know how I share just my whole screen? There, I got it, desktop. Okay, so here in the participants window, the yes, no, go slower, go faster button, and then under more, you can do thumbs up, thumbs down. If we're gonna vote for something,
It's not showing up.
What, my screen isn't showing up?
All of your windows are showing up, but the Zoom participants window isn't showing up.
Oh, shoot. Well, thanks for letting me know. That didn't work. Okay, well, you guys open your own participant window and find this stuff at the bottom of it. I want us to practice. So how about everyone show me the yes, give me a yes. I'm waiting for everybody. Find that yes button in participants, please, and click it. Ashanti, Fernando, Jasmine, Jim. You guys, can you hear me? Please check the yes button at the bottom of the participants window.
I checked it.
There we go. Some more people are. Did you have a question, Ashanti?
Oh, I don't have a question. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Jim and Bianca, if you can hear me. Okay, let's move forward. They might catch up while we're going forward. Let me know, you guys, if you're having trouble with your internet or something. And that's why I'm not getting a response from you. How about hit a go slower button? Because I figure that's the one you'll need to find more often than any kind of go faster. Go slower, please. Click that. We got most everybody. Okay, and just to make sure you're finding everything, go ahead, click on more and give me a thumbs up. Thank you, everybody, for going through this. I just want to make sure you guys know where those things are as we go through this. I think I solved the problem of being able to annotate on my screen as we go through the slides too. So hopefully I'm finding all the functionality of Zoom as well. Oh, I see there are chat things. How are you supposed to check those things? You just need to click on the button that says yes, no, go slower, go faster. That's how you do it. Oh, thank you. Somebody answered that. I'm behind. Okay, good. Hopefully you guys have figured that out. If you're having trouble, let me know. Go ahead and speak up or put something in the chat window. Let me know if you can't do any of that. Okay, let us go to the iLearn page. I'm gonna share that screen because I wanna point a couple things out that I didn't mention on Tuesday. So I mentioned the Q&A forum. As you guys were logging in, I mentioned the Q&A forum that I posted answers to from emailed questions. I prefer if you just like go directly to the Q&A forum and ask the question. I can answer there and everybody can see both the answer and the question. And also announcements. I let you guys know when I solve I changed all the quizzes over to unlimited. I don't know why I missed that. Oh, the survey. I've got 18 responses so far, which is great. Please don't forget to do that survey. It's one of the things that you should be doing this week. Notice that I put these little check boxes here. Some of them will automatically check when you complete, like let's say your lab assignment, when you submit your completed lab, that checkbox will fill in. You'll get a check mark. When you submit your survey, you'll get a check mark. But some of them, like the fact that there are lab documents here, that I left up to you so you can check it off when you're all done with the lab. Just to keep track of your work and to make sure that you're seeing everything. That's why I put those there, just for organization. Okay, let's see. Got those. Oh, look what arrived. I got one of the sets of rocks and minerals that I'm asking you to buy. They came. They look great. The specimens themselves, they're a nice size. They're like an inch cube, maybe 1.5 inches. And you'll definitely be able to see the physical properties of these minerals when you're working on these for those labs. They come all labeled with a sticky number on it. You probably can't see that, but there's a little 14 right there. That's so it corresponds to a list that they've got that gives you it identifies the mineral for you, which is fine because we need to learn some minerals before we can identify any that we don't know. And part of your lab will be, when we get to the rocks and the minerals, to try to identify unknown rocks and minerals. Those kits also come with a small piece of ceramic that we use as a streak plate. So we scratch the minerals across those, and the powdered mineral, if it's softer than the streak plate, the powdered mineral leaves a particular color streak that you use to help identify the minerals. And it comes with a little magnifying glass. I mean, it's good enough for the purposes of the lab for sure. So you don't need anything fancier than that. Everything, we're just waiting on the glass plate still. Those haven't come in, but we have the magnets and we have the cute little dropper bottles that we're hoping to be able to send you a little bit of hydrochloric acid. It sounds a little scary, but it's really not. All of our intro classes use the hydrochloric acid. It's a test to see if something is made of calcite or is a carbonate, that you break the cations away from the carbonate anion and you get this fizzing action, or you have a release of carbon dioxide. It's cool. Okay, questions about the boxes of rocks and minerals?
What date did we need to order the boxes, like by?
I hope that you will receive them and have them in your hands by the week 6 lab.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that is, if I look on iLearn, week 6 is September 28th is the date of that Monday. I would give it, because of the slowdown in like the postal service lately, I would give it a couple of weeks to arrive. Like I said, Tuesday, it should only take like 3 days or something, but if it takes longer, just want to make sure you get them. So try to order by September 14th, let's say. That's a pretty good deadline. That'll give you 2 weeks. Okay, so I mentioned, I've got a list here. The Zoom, that. And one last thing I'll point out is I put another link. Since we met on Tuesday, I added this link to submit your completed lab 1 here. I give you a deadline because if you're trying to stay up to speed with class and you're doing all your work every week, that's your goal. Your goal is to get the lab done by September 1st so that you can start fresh with a second lab and not worry about any old work. But because of the pandemic and just everything, I have a new policy whereby submit your work whenever you get it done. So don't worry if you don't get it done by September 1st. you can submit it September 14th if you've got to, or September 3rd if you just need a couple of extra days, right? So it's not really, I don't want to give you an excuse not to do the work. It is, I'm just letting you have an out in case there's a problem. I think also, I forgot to mention, I don't think I included this in the syllabus, and I'll add this. I'd like to drop the lowest 1 or 2 of each graded item. So like the lowest grade lab, the lowest grade online quiz, the lowest grade on the quizzes, the exams, they're small exams. So that's why I don't want to call them an exam. They're in-class quizzes, let's say. Just so if you have to miss class and you can't take it, or if you just like something goes wrong, you've got to travel out of town and you can't get the lab done, you know, let that one go. It's okay. It's not my preference, of course. I want you to do them all because they're each designed to be, I think they're kind of fun anyway, but you know, useful. You're going to learn a lot, and entertaining while you do them. So I think you'll enjoy doing the lab work. All right, that is all the announcements. Any other questions about that stuff? Just give it a second if you've got one. I'm not looking at the chat room either. No, we're okay. Okay, so hopefully you did the pre-lab. Oh, I'm going to tell you now before I forget, because if we get to the end of the class and I don't mention Hurricane Laura, there's a hurricane right now. It's a Category 4 hurricane still, I believe, that's just moved on land in Louisiana and Texas along the Gulf of Mexico overnight. And there's at least one person has died. I think a tree, there's a lot of wind in a hurricane. So a tree fell down and hit somebody. They can be very deadly. And I put together slides for you to talk about Hurricane Laura. So if we've got time, I'd like to tell you a bit about that. If not today, maybe on Tuesday. But if you haven't been following that in the news or online or anything, check it out, because that's definitely related to this class. That's some active geology going on at a speedy pace. Okay, let's go look at the lab. All right, I asked everybody to first of all make a copy of the lab, save it with your name in the file name, so that I don't get like 30 lab1.docs in my inbox or in the online assignments. Because when I download them to my computer, if I'm saving them or editing them or whatever I'm doing, grading them later, that's really helpful to have your name in the file. So please do that. Then I asked you to read this article, Feathers and Fur Fly Over the Pterosaur Fossil Finding. That's a lot of F's. I asked you to go through it and look for statements of fact and statements of interpretation. And you had a couple of examples that, let's see, we used I'll show you the instructions. Highlight the observations that are observations that we'll consider fact because we're observing them. And the interpretations are in orange. So observations in blue, interpretations in orange. So, well, birds are famous. I don't know about, yeah, some are. The interpretation that what they see in the fossil was actually feathers. That's an interpretation. Birds use feathers to fly and in mating and just to keep warm for all those purposes. Admittedly, they are tiny structures, and an interpretation again is that they're feathers. I asked you to go through and find other examples of the observations versus interpretations. What did you guys find? So what you should have done is gone through here. There's some examples of notes in the margin that you can make a statement about something that you highlighted. And hopefully you did that, you continue to do that in the margin here for the entire article. And then you wrote a short summary of what it was that you did in this activity and what you learned. And the second part was to go find your own article on any topic that interested you and to do the same thing. Hopefully that wasn't difficult to do. Did anybody have a problem? You can say something, or you can write something in the chat box if there was a problem finding your own article. I'd like to get an idea what your topics were. Do you think you could just share in the chat window what your topics were for that second article?
Could you repeat the question?
Would you, so the second part of the pre-lab was to go find your own article about some science that was in the news, and to read it and highlight what observations were made that were factual and interpretations, same as you did with the article that I gave you in the lab. And so someone chose Mount St. Helens. Oh, question, would years of observations or would years be observations or interpretations, since it says about 70 million years? I would say that is an observation, because that, even though they don't say in the article, that date must be based on some radiometric dating that was done to give that answer. That didn't come out of thin air. So I would say that's an observation. Another topic was there was a new algorithm that finds hidden patterns in your dreams. Ew, huh, interesting. I bet that had a lot of interpretation in it. I've only had 2 responses, so it'd be great if you could, if more people could add in what the articles were. Arctic temperatures rising faster than predicted. Are electric vehicles really so climate friendly? Good one. I'll give it a second. The first physics-based method for predicting large solar flares. Interesting. Huh. I'm just thinking, I wonder how they do that. I want to look at all of these. I didn't ask you to actually, I don't think I asked you to attach a copy of the article, did I? Take notes, right? Oh, it does say bring the article. Okay, so hopefully you have the article handy. It sure would be interesting. I'd like to see these. So if you were able to add the text into the bottom part of the lab for the second part here, where it says, you may add notes about your article. You could add the text of the article right there, copy and paste it. So just highlight the text in the article and paste it right there. Or you could even screenshot it and put the screenshot images in there. However you know how to do something like that, go for it if you can. Or you can use like the insert, when you insert and you choose a file from your desktop, you could do it that way. Okay, so we've got some more topics.
Excuse me? Did we have to highlight our new article like we did the last?
It didn't say that specifically did it, but I was hoping that you would. But hopefully at least your notes made the same kinds of
Mm-hmm.
distinctions about observations versus, I'm not going to ding you if you didn't highlight the article, but I would like you to have notes from it. Okay, let's see. Turns out the electric vehicles are not that climate friendly. I was imagining that the manufacture of them certainly, and then maybe what do you do with the batteries after their life runs out? That could be a potential problem. A dinosaur ate a smaller dinosaur, and paleontologists are trying to figure out what it was. That's cool. Was there actually a fossil dinosaur inside the, like you could see the form of the dinosaur inside the other one? That's really,
they actually just found like a majority of it like inside the other dinosaur, but not all of it.
oh, that's cool. Where was it? Like Mongolia? They've had a lot of dinosaur findings.
I think it was China actually.
Okay, yeah, Western China, Mongolia, same part of the world.
Yeah.
Or like Montana, they always have nice fossil finds. Okay, scientists discover the dinosaurs had dandruff. Great. We really needed to know that. Mummified puppy ate one of the last woolly rhinos before it died. I saw a mummified puppy in the news. I didn't see the woolly rhino thing. I'll have to go back. Tiny bug slayer, a relative of the dinosaurs and the pterosaurs. Huh. You found a really interesting selection. It's nice to see that a lot of them are earth science based. That's great. Whether it's climate or even solar physics. I mean, when we get together, every year there's a couple of big meetings. There's probably a meeting of like 10 to 15,000 geologists for the Geological Society of America that happens every October or November. We go to that meeting. And every December, often in Moscone Center in San Francisco, we have the more like 25,000 earth scientist meeting of the American Geophysical Union. And both of those associations have like heliosphere studies as part of earth sciences. So we include the solar system to planetary geology. So somebody says, I couldn't insert my article in the PreLab, but I downloaded a PDF and annotated it. Absolutely, that's all right. That's great. Yeah, however you can do it. I mean, if you can handwrite on something, or even in a PDF, you can use the pencil to write notes, or you can type in comments to yourself. However you want to do it, you could print it and actually write on the article. Yeah, any of those methods are fine. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to put you in, and this is a little bit experimental because I practiced this though. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. I've been in them. I haven't assigned them before. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms of, let's see, about 4 students in. How many people do we have here today? I don't see the total. It looks about 20, maybe a little over 20. So maybe 5 groups of 4 people, something like that. There might be one that has 3 or 5. But what I'd like you to do is share what you did. We're going to do this in stages. The first breakout room will be to share what you did in the first part of the lab, which was to highlight the observations and the interpretations about the feathers, the feather article. And then we're going to come back and talk about it. So what I'd like you to do is to assign one person from each group, either assign or maybe one person could volunteer to tell me 1 or 2 things that you learned in your group, or that the group decided were true about the article when we come back to the whole class. Okay, so I want you to discuss the pterosaur, the feather article, take notes, and have one person from your group ready to speak on Zoom and explain just one or two things that your group did. Okay? All right, let's try this. Have you guys, let me see here, before we do that, let me see a thumbs up if you've done breakout rooms before. Oh yeah, for sure, many of you, the vast majority. Okay, for the few that haven't, I'm sure the others will help you along the way. I definitely want everyone to contribute in the group, okay? So don't let one person do all the work. Everybody talk, and please say, contribute some of what you did to the group effort, okay? So breakout rooms. Okay, we're gonna assign about 5. Ready? I may visit you in your breakout room, but you'll come back in about 4 minutes. Okay, so you don't have a lot of time, 4 or 5 minutes. All right, here we go. All right. Jim, are you not in the breakout room? Oh, there we go. Welcome back. Was that enough time, you guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, good. Was it too much?
No, it was like the right amount, perfect amount.
Cool. That was the goal.
I have a
Wait
question.
until everybody comes back.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Where can we turn in the summary and the handout, the activity? Do we have to turn it in?
Yes, please. When we are done, let me share my screen. When we're done today or after class, you can go to the iLearn page, which is just in week 1 right here. I added this link. Submit your completed lab 1 here by September 1st. And so you just click there and it will give you a window to upload up to 3 documents as you need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, I thought that was for the lab that was on the bottom. Is that the same as like, so we turn everything in on that little like,
So I'm not sure, let's see how far we get. I would like to get you to that part, the topo map part.
yeah.
I definitely want to start it in class, but I want to finish this first. And so we're gonna, after we do a couple of breakout rooms, we're gonna watch that video that I put up online and talk about what do we need to define life, and like what observations can we make and what interpretations are we coming up with to explain that video.
Okay, but we are submitting both of the labs, the pre-lab and the lab 1 in the submit your completed lab 1 here.
Yes, you can do
Okay.
that. Yes, it will take up to 3 documents. You can always, although you can always convert anything to a PDF and then just insert extra pages. You can always put them in one document if you had to.
Thank you.
Sure. I thought I heard somebody else asking a question. No? Okay. Great. It sounded like that was enough time for everybody to finish. So there should be 5 people that are ready to give me just 1 or 2 things that you that were observations or interpretations that you got out of your group. Can we do breakout group 1? Did you pay attention to which group we were in?
I think that was my group.
Okay.
So something that I learned or like was an observation was one of the articles that one of the other students mentioned was an article on sea lice. So there was sea lice that I guess had killed, I think it was a seal, because they were like sucking the blood. And I had never heard of sea lice before, so I thought alone that was just interesting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was one.
Cool. Cool. Okay, breakout group 2.
Oh yeah. So we were talking about like the article for the class, and it was like we were talking about how the pterosaurs, like
Pterosaur.
pterosaurs. I was like, whoops.
Ignore the P.
Yeah. We were like talking about it, and it was like discussing how like some paleontologists believe that it, like some say it's feathers and some like disagree and call it like bone filaments. And then like how it's like because of that, like depending on if they all agree or not, it would change like the origin of the feathers and like the common ancestor between dinosaurs and birds and pterosaurs.
Right. Cool. Yes, there generally needs to be scientific agreement for something to become kind of accepted as a theory, which is, you know, a next level from just a hypothesis. A theory has been tested and there's general agreement. I don't know how that, I'm not sure how you could prove a feather was a feather beyond just the observations that you make about its texture. Did anyone come across anything like that? No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think there was anything like that. Okay, breakout group 3.
We basically just talked about, we also talked about the class article and like what we thought were observations, interpretations.
Yeah.
And like one of them was like, is towards the end of the article where they said that the feathers were most likely used for insulation, but like I thought that most likely for insulation was an interpretation.
Totally.
So yeah.
Totally. Definitely. Yeah. Because what do you don't know the main purpose, right? Like maybe the main purpose was for flight, but that's, you know, a different argument. Anything else from group 3 or no? Okay, group 4, please.
I think that's my group. One thing that stood out to me was talking about the evolution of feathers and how the dinosaur specimens with feathers are about 180 million years old, and that these pterosaur fossils were 230 million years. And so one interpretation that I saw was it talking about how it gives evidence that there's a common ancestor between birds, dinosaurs, and pterosaurs that was either feathered or at least had the genes to grow them. However, one observation was that it was talking about how it's difficult to interpret feathers from fossils because the fossils are flattened and don't have the depth. And so just talking about the skepticism surrounding whether the structures are in fact feathers or not, and the need for more specimens to be able to get more information about whether or not they are in fact feathers.
Exactly. Yeah, good one. For sure. So this is just like one example, and it's rare. It's rare to have something like this preserved, and that's why they need to see more specimens that are going to give a slightly different perspective, hopefully, on what these feather structures are and what they look like in 3 dimensions. Yeah, totally. Okay. Were you group 4? Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay, I think you were. I think we're on group 5 now, please.
Okay, group 5 was my group. One thing we talked about was they observed the wing membranes, and then they like had their interpretation that they would be similar to like scraggly chicken feathers.
Yeah, right. So did you think that was an observation or an interpretation?
Well, we kind of discussed the being related to chicken feathers as an interpretation, but the actual like looking at the wing membranes was the observation.
Yeah, right. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, that went really well. Good job, guys. I want to do that again. Now, okay, so the last breakout group, I had hoped you were talking about the feather article, not your own article, but that's okay, as long as you talked about something. This time, I'd like you to talk about the article that you found on your own. You're going to be in a new breakout group, so otherwise I would say that group 1 who did their own articles the first time, you could swap. But unless you just happen to be in that same group, I think you should move on. And everybody should talk about the article that you found. We'll do the same thing. Please have one person volunteer or nominate one person to be your spokesperson. And that spokesperson will bring just 1 or 2 interpretations, observations back to the main room. Okay? I'm going to give you about the same amount of time. So if you're all talking about different things, that means maybe I should give you a little bit more time. I'll give you a couple more minutes so you have time to actually talk about the meaning of your article and not just like the basics. Okay, let's try this again. Here we go. So Kay and Johnny, you gotta click the button to join.
Everything.
Hi, how can I help? What just happened?
Than you guys.
Hi, can I help with something?
Yeah, we're not too sure on what to talk about.
The article that you found?
But
For
like,
the-
what should we discuss about it?
What, just some of the observations that you discovered, like observations of like factual statements.
Okay.
And interpretations that are something that the scientist is not necessarily, you know, whether it's not necessarily a fact, he's assuming something about
Okay.
the science. Okay, try to do
All
that.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, now I'll try to figure out how to get out of here.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody.
I have another question.
Sure.
So the topography, the map exercise. So if we don't get to do that in class today, it's gonna be for homework.
That is the idea. I would at least like you to try starting it. I think we'll have time to start it in class. So at least to look it over and to answer any initial questions that you've got, and maybe start doing a few things. I think it's a fairly short lab. Apart from the last question is to, it asks you to download your own topography map and to answer a few questions about it. That could potentially be problematic. I mean, if you have a hard time using that website, but I checked everything and it looks fairly straightforward to get going anyway. Okay. Now we've got most everybody. It looks like probably everybody. Cool. Okay, so same thing. I'd like to hear one or two observations, interpretations about, it could be about any of the articles you talked about. So there might have been like 4 different articles that on different topics. So it's up to you what you want to talk about. Could I get the volunteer from Breakout Room 1, please?
Yeah. So we talked about, I'm going to talk about my article, which was about how elephants would in Thailand crush like crops by hopping over fences.
Oh yeah.
And Oxford observed that in Africa, they actually got deterred by bees because they would sting them. So they tried it out in Thailand and it worked. And we said that it was an observation by Oxford.
What was the observation? That bees
That,
deterring the elephants?
yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. What a climate-friendly way of, and an elephant-friendly way of keeping them out of the crops.
Yeah, for sure.
They shoot them. They try to kill him, I think, or shoo him away. I know with I don't know how.
Yeah.
Methods.
They tried firecrackers and electric fences and sometimes barbed wire.
I feel like electric. It'd have to be one hell of a shock to bother an elephant, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, group 2, please.
Oh, I was gonna just we're gonna talk about my article. We talked about how like the climate change. Well, all of us are kind of all climate change, like in different ways. But then mine was like the article was like about the Arctic and how like because the predicted for like the temperature rising was like they thought it was gonna be like not linear but like at a steady pace. But it turns out because there's like other like random changes that they didn't like take and consider that the Arctic was like melting at a faster rate than predicted.
So, okay, so those sound, a lot of what you said sound like observations, right? What were they interpreting about whether or not it was going to be a linear increase in temperature, like a steady increase or versus exponential? Or?
Okay, then they said they interpreted it from like that it was wrong because they looked at like models from worst case scenarios and they were like, this seems more close to what's happening now.
Oh, good. Okay. So that's an observation. They're looking at the trend from the model and from the weather patterns today. Not weather patterns, the global temperature and other climate variables. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Group 3, please. Did you forget which group 3 was? Let's try group 4 then.
So the article I'm going to talk about, it's my article, but it was about the 40th anniversary of Mount St. Helens erupting.
Oh yeah.
It was back on May 18th. And one observation was that the death toll, it was 57 people. However, an interpretation, it was saying that they think that the death toll remained relatively low because scientists warned local authorities about it and they limited access to the area around the volcano. And so they predicted that if they hadn't done so, that thousands of people could have died. Another observation was that there's actually 161 active volcanoes in the US, which is 10% of the Earth's total. However, they were saying that Americans are largely unaware of it. And so one interpretation is that we need to be more aware and informed about the activity of volcanoes just to be prepared in case a disaster happens. And actually it related it to the coronavirus pandemic and talking about how like preventative measures and basically listening to scientists can help reduce death tolls.
I see the comparison.
It talked about that, and just they were saying like hopefully in times of, you know, crisis we'll come together and like get through it. But
yeah, it's true. That's one of the, like, it's a somewhat ethical problem that volcanologists have when it comes to like whether or not to evacuate an area or limit access to a park, for instance, or something like that. Because if something doesn't happen and you've put people out of their way, then they grumble and say the scientists were wrong and they don't know what they're doing. But when they get it right, it's pretty good. Thank you. Group 5, please.
An article we talked about was about the California fires going on right now. And the observation that it made is that it was because of all the thunderstorms and stuff combined with very little rain and dry brush was the observation they made. But the interpretation was that basically the fires probably would have happened to some extent no matter what due to climate change, because it is so dry all over Northern California, in that fires have happened the last 2 or 3 years, and the way people act in California can be pretty unaware of their environment, like people throwing cigarette butts or something out the window, and they just interpreted that these fires probably would have happened even without the thunderstorms going on. Maybe it wouldn't have been as extreme, but yeah.
Yeah, it seems like fires are becoming more and more of a problem, aren't they? And they're getting closer, or they're happening in places where there are pretty large populations, like right now.
Yeah.
In Santa Cruz.
Yeah, there's a fire probably like 30 minutes away from me.
Right.
Yeah.
Scary. Thank you very much for sharing that out. Okay. We can do this. I think we'll have time to get to the topography maps. Okay, let's go look at, I'm gonna share my screen again. Am I sharing my screen? I want to share this. Okay, so this screen, this is the lab. So we've just gone through all that. So what I wanted to do in class was to consider characteristics of life. And this is another instance where we're gonna think about what facts do we know, what observations we can make about life, and versus what kind of interpretations that we come up with. When we watch this video, and a lot of you probably already took a look at it, it's pretty crazy. And I came up like almost right away, I came up with a hypothesis about what was going on. And I'm curious to see what you all think. Let's go over the characteristics just a bit. So here are 9 things that we put together to explain like the organization of life, that life is made up of structures that might have, that have these cells in them, that have these heterogeneous chemicals is what they're calling the cells. things that are living use energy. They metabolize, they eat. The homeostasis, what's inside has to be different from what's outside, and the internal conditions need to be maintained. So like you can't damage the body, otherwise you'd kill it, essentially. Reproduction, does it make copies? Is there DNA or RNA that we know of? Does it grow? Does it convert outside materials into part of the organism? Like, does it eat? Does it react to external stimuli? Does it move if you poke it? Or does it move on its own? Is there evolution? Does it adapt to its environment? Is there motion? So bacteria move, so do we, but is that a prerequisite? Some living things don't move. Can you think of some living things that don't move?
Trees.
What'd you say?
Trees.
Trees.
Like plants.
They do though, don't they? Very slowly. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I was thinking of like coral. Coral is a living organism. I mean, it grows, but it's not walking around on the ocean floor. I guess you could say that about trees too. Any other ideas?
Sponges.
Sponges, totally. Throw it out there, guys. Living things like fungi. I don't know, the growth of the roots, though, does mean that it's moving. Any other thoughts?
What qualifies as movement?
What do you think?
I would think it would have to like move from one place to another, not just like have a stationary thing and then kind of just spread out. I don't know.
Is it mobile? Can it move position
Mm-hmm.
versus just growing like a root might grow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. It would move position like on its own. Any other ideas? We'll probably come up with some more. Let's watch the video together and come up with some thoughts. Okay. Of course, this is not NASA. This is an experiment in a lab, but yeah. The idea is here's an unknown test subject that's going to be placed in water. What is it? And the question is it alive? Did NASA find life? Okay, so something was added to the Petri dish and it changes the way it moves. Go ahead and if you've got ideas, you can use the chat box to type out your thoughts, or go ahead and volunteer verbally, shout it out. What do you see? We talked about, okay, motion, we were talking about just a minute ago. Does this move position? Not just grow? Yeah, it moves. Does it respond to external stimuli? That was another one of the, we'll go back to those categories. I don't know who designed this video with the Star Wars captions like this, but what did we see and what supports our claims? So the goal here is let's make some observations. Let's make some observations about what we saw. Let's just go through these and think about it. If you guys have ideas, go ahead. I please do shout them out, or use the chat box, like I said. Where did my chat box go? There. Seems to be growing. So someone thought they saw growth. Okay. let me see a vote of thumbs up or thumbs down, or you could use the yes box. That's easier. Was it growing? Did you make an observation that it was growing? You can say no if you don't think so, or yes if you do. Come on, guys, you can decide. Make a call. Whatever your gut's telling you. It doesn't. There's no right or wrong answer here, really. It's more. I think I have more no's than yeses, but it's kind of close. It's only 5 no's and it's three yeses and 5 no's. 6 no's. Okay, so what's winning is no growth. Okay, that corresponds to what I saw. I didn't see it change size or grow any like tentacles or roots or anything like that. But also it was hard to see because it was spinning the whole time. All right, so we'll go with majority rules. We'll say there's no growth. So you can type in on your lab form what you believe. It doesn't have to, you don't have to agree with the group. So make some observations, what you saw, whether or not you saw it grow. We saw it move, so item 8, motion, it definitely moved. Number 9, interaction with other individuals. Did you see it interact with whatever was added to the Petri dish or with the Petri dish itself? I'm gonna clear your votes. Please tell me if you thought you saw interaction with other individuals or other components. A green yes or a red no.
Sorry, what was the question?
Did it interact with other individuals or other particles? Did it interact with anything? Here, I can go back and we can watch it again a little bit while you're voting. I assume you can still see my screen. Okay, here we go. It's gonna be added to the Petri dish. Maybe it did see growth on the way down. Maybe as it was placed in the water. There could be, maybe, it looked like it elongated maybe. This is what I'm talking about, interaction. Look at the motion now, it's different. What do you guys see? What way is it interacting with those particles? I don't want to volunteer what I think until I hear from you guys.
It seems like it's trying to like grab the food into like that hook thing.
You think it's chasing the particles?
Mm-hmm.
Any other observations?
It doesn't look like it's actually consuming any of it. It kind of looks like it's just pushing it all around.
It's pushing it around, okay.
Like maybe it's incapable of ingesting.
Okay, any other observations? Oh, we've got something in the chat box that was covered by pictures. It looks like it's being repelled by the objects. That's what I noticed, is that it almost looks, dare I say, like it's moving away in a magnetic, like being repelled magnetically. And could those be magnetic particles? Or is it some other force? I mean, magnetic, that's definitely an interpretation. We don't know that. but that's how I would describe the way that it's being repelled. But not always. Like, it just sat there by this big particle right there for a minute. Like, it's got a particle right next to it now. So it's not all of the particles. Okay, please make some notes in your lab as we do this. Let's go back. So we've talked about growth. We've talked about motion and interaction with other individuals. Did you see organization to it? Did it look like an organized structure? I would say, yeah. You can vote again. Yes, green yes, check mark. No, red X. Is it organized? And no one said anything yet, so I don't want to say what I'm thinking just yet. Is it organized? So basically, most everybody is saying, yes, it's organized. What I see is, it looks like a unit that is sticking together as it moves. So I would say, yes, it looks like an organized thing, object. Okay, I'm going to clear those. Thank you for your votes. Energy use. Does it eat? That goes into growth too. Does it eat? Does it grow? We already, okay, votes, great. Let's combine those two together. So someone said they thought it was chasing those particles like it was food. And others said it looks like it was being repelled. So maybe it wasn't eating. So does it eat? Does it grow? Most people are saying no. Okay, so what did you see? What observation can you make that led you to that conclusion? So I'd like you, so address each 1 through 9 in the observations that support this and that it indicates it alive, and that it might indicate that it's not alive. Okay, so I want you to address all of these somewhere in this part of the lab. So I would say, okay, so energy use, I didn't see it eat anything. So I would say no to 2, and I would say no to 5, because I didn't see the size of the object change. Except for maybe when it was first put in, it almost looked like it pulled, it strung out or something like that on its way into the Petri dish, but I'm not really sure. So I'm not gonna decide anything based on that. Oh, there's another comment. If it uncurled, maybe as a reaction to the water. Oh, it uncurled, maybe as a reaction to the water. Oh, like maybe it was long and then it curled up when it got into the water. Okay, yeah, that could be possible. Okay, next. Homeostasis, what's in it? That one's harder to address, but it behaved as its own entity. So we'll leave that one alone. How about reproduction? Did we see it make copies? Did we see any evidence that, yeah, I should have cleared before we started voting. Go ahead, vote again. Did it reproduce? So in your lab, you can make a note that evidence that it was not alive is that it did not make copies of itself. If you thought you saw it consuming those particles, then go ahead and say, yes, you think one of the pieces of evidence that you saw, one observation you made that suggested it's alive is that you think it consumed particles. Okay, so overwhelmingly no reproduction. How about this reaction to external stimuli? Does it move if you poke it? In this case, we didn't get to poke it, but they poured something else into that Petri dish, and the object did react, didn't it? We saw its, let's go back to the video. We saw its motion change after those particles were introduced. Here we go. Okay, so watch what it does on its own. I wish they wouldn't shrink it. There you go. Oh, you know what? It does change shape right at the beginning. It starts out a lot straighter. Now, okay, so its motion just shifted, didn't it? It was going in little circles by the side of the Petri dish, and then when these were added, it kind of shot across the Petri dish, and now its motion is much more random. Wouldn't you say? So in your lab, make a note that it does seem to react to external stimuli. Okay. I'm going to go back here. So the questions that I ask you to answer, what observations can you make about the test subject? All right. You don't have to put them in under number 1 if you've already included the answers in number 2 or 3, because your observations can just go in 2 or 3 actually. And the very last question, now that we've addressed, I think we addressed all of these characteristics of life. Some of these we said, yes, it does do these things. So some of our observations suggest it is alive. Some of our observations suggest it isn't. What do you think? Is it alive or isn't it? And go ahead and write your answer there. And there is no right or wrong answer. And I'm not sure if I should tell you what it is. Oh, wait, someone added a comment down here. Of course you can copy and paste the characteristics if you want to answer that way. Just copy and paste and duplicate, but you can also just answer it in the one. If the subject did change its shape because of the water, it could have been a reaction to maintain homeostasis, such as how we get goosebumps when we get cold. Food for thought, I guess. It could also apply to evolution since it changes to fit the new environment. New environment is the water in the Petri dish. That's a good one. Thank you for that contribution. Okay, so basically we're done with that part of the, oh, there's one more question. What would you look for to determine if the subject is alive or not, if you could observe it in person, let's say? You could, is there a test that you would do to it? What could you do to it to find out if it was alive? Think about that. And you can answer that way. That's the end of that lab. We have not much time left. I'm gonna let you, you don't need to like hurry, finish the typing right this second. And you can take a few minutes after a class and do that. But, oh, here we go. Does it excrete waste? Does it interact with the other individuals? Yeah, so you could, if you could see it in person, you might better be able to see, is it consuming those particles? Is it excreting any waste? That would be hard to see, especially since it's moving so rapidly. Okay. Let's put that away. I want to stop sharing that and pull up the, where'd it go? Okay, I want to share this page with you. Okay, so this is unrelated, right? We just did a lab that is testing your, ways that scientists make observations, draw conclusions, And also, like, how are we interpreting things that could be wrong because it goes above and beyond what we can actually see, right? So I think everyone did a great job. Please include all your answers, and don't forget to add your article to that. And you can upload that to on the iLearn site. But wait until you finish this part of the lab, because I think you can add them both at the same time. I wanted to get you started looking at maps early on in the semester, because maps are so important to convey a lot of information. And I want you to understand how to read a map, especially with regard to topography. You see contour lines that they connect lines of equal elevation, like on a hill. You can imagine. Can you see if I draw on the board? I'm gonna try. Okay, you can see about there. There's a mountain. Can you see that line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a mountain, and maybe there's a stream in here. All right, if I were to draw contour lines around here, let's say this is the ocean, so that's sea level. If I were to draw contour lines, I might say I'm gonna draw a line of equal elevation every 100 feet. So if I were to do that, it might look like something like this. Here's a 0, that's sea level. There's 100 feet. And I'm just gonna draw a line, a ring around this mountain basically to show, all right, there's 100, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet. And we even, we can continue on the rest of the topography. But that kind of contour is represented in 2 dimensions on a flat sheet of paper. So instead of looking at the side of the mountain, we're looking down on the mountain. And the way that it would change, it's gonna change the way it looks. And I think you can see both sides. So if you were to show that in map view, like here's your map sheet, and that mountain is in the middle of the map. There's the peak. I'm gonna put, there's X at the peak. What are those lines gonna look like on a map? They're gonna look like, go ahead.
I said they're gonna be like circles.
Circles. Or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So they might not be perfect circles depending on the shape of the hill, but you're gonna have, there's the 400-foot line, there's the 300-foot line, 200, 100. That's a nice pointy sort of volcano looking feature. But you can see how different it looks when you rotate and you look down on a map view. And so I want to show you what different geomorphic structures, so what landforms look like on maps when they're more complex features than just a nice symmetrical mountain like that. Okay, so that's the goal of this lab, is to get you started with that. We're also going to be, in addition to maps, we're going to be using, we'll use different kinds of maps, not just topo maps. We'll use geologic maps that also often include topography on them too. So we'll look at different kinds of maps. We're going to look at satellite imagery using Google Earth, and that's also like a map view, except instead of topography, you see the landforms themselves, kind of. It has shadowing from the sun. We're going to look at a lot of that, and I think you'll think that's a lot of fun. So this lab, I see that it's noon. Okay, we might go just a few minutes over if that's okay. If you gotta bail, you gotta bail. There'll be a recording of this posted online afterwards, and no worries, you can come back and hear the last few words. I think that you can do this lab on your own without too much input from me. But let's just look at some of the instructions. So I ask you to please read through the lab before you start. You're gonna need a pencil and an eraser. Do this with a pencil. If you can do it electronically, go for it. If you can draw on your document, but otherwise you might need to print in this case and actually use a pencil and an eraser. You can use colored pencils too. You'll need a ruler so that you can draw a straight line across this and make some notes, so that we're gonna try drawing a cross section of that mountain. Kind of like that looks, but we're gonna plot it from, we're gonna go from the map and create the cross section. Then I have snippets, these little pieces of topographic maps in the worksheet below that you'll use. And then the very last question is you go find your own map. And I ask you to find either the topographic map that includes where you live today or where you grew up. It's your choice, whatever you think might be more interesting. Okay, so the procedures. Part 1, I'm just gonna skip straight through to this so that you can see what is involved. There are a lot of pages to this lab, but there aren't a lot of questions. It is just long because of all these clippings of maps. So I want you to use these diagrams to understand what the contours mean. For example, in this one, there are 2 contours that are spaced really far apart compared to those 2 spaces, same red X's that are in the same position, but in this case, you have contours that are much more closely spaced. So more contours across the same distance. What does that mean as far as the topography is concerned? There are some resources here. There are live links from the document that so you can open up a web page, and it takes you back to the original lab where I found this, and explains some of these things, like a rule of V's. Like, what does it mean when you have a V shape to your contour? Are you going upstream or downstream? You'll see the question in a moment. Okay, here's a more complex diagram. So this is like a hill. Instead of a nice simple hill that I drew there, this one kind of has 4 ridges and 4 valleys coming down off the side. So looking at that, which of these bumps, that bump there versus these that kind of point uphill, there's the peak at the X, the top. See, it gives an elevation of 2,574 feet at the peak. Then you've got these contours down. They're spaced a certain amount apart, and let's see, 2,400. 1, 2, 3, 4. So each of these is how many feet more than 2,400 to get to 2,500? So 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 of them. So 2,420, 2,440, 2,460, 2,480, 2,500. So they're 20-foot intervals. That's called a contour interval. That's probably one of the questions on this, is that what is the contour interval? Then the question is, now that we know the contour interval and what each of these lines represents. Oh, also notice that the 2,400 line and the 2,500 line are darker. They're a thicker line. They're index contours, so that then you know that those are the hundreds. So if you were working on a map, you could count a lot faster just going by hundreds instead of 20s. Okay, so the question is, are these ridges or valleys? Which of these are those? So you might need to read a little bit and look at some images online to help you decide. You can do a mental exercise that might do the trick for you. Imagine climbing this mountain and envision what it would look like if you were there in person. Like if you were to follow these contours that are pointing uphill. So try that, but I don't want to just give you the answer. I want you to kind of work out some of these things. Next question, it gives you, it's a more complex map. In this case, it's got a couple of rivers going through it or streams. It looks like what happened was they've covered up the contour in the contour numbers there so that you can find the contour interval yourself. Notice that there are two roundish structures or rounded structures right here and right here. One of them is the top of a hill. One of them is a depression. Which is which? What's this? Does anyone have a guess?
It's a hill.
Yeah, because just like I drew there, it's just another one of these contours. So you'd increase the number by whatever the contour intervals until you got to this contour, and then you should be able to mark an elevation at B. A, where you see these tick marks, those tick marks indicate that instead of a hill, it's actually a depression. So it's a little valley in there. Maybe there's a little lake in there or something. That's what those mean. Then the next, I'm just gonna finish giving you a tour of the lab, and then I'm gonna let you have a stab at it over the, until next week. You don't have to finish this. We'll talk about it again next week. But it would be great if you got a start and did some reading. This gives you, this is a cross-section line from A to A prime, I think it says. Might say A to B. It's too tiny for me to tell, actually. They've marked the elevations on this plot here. So you can get an elevation, drop a line down, and put a dot on this graph and actually plot out the elevation to form a cross-section, a profile of what this map area looks like. So it's showing you, here's a mountain in the middle. You see rings of contours. Here's a valley. And look at what the contours do. This will help you with the previous questions too, I think. And then in this question, it's a simpler structure, but I ask you to try to do the same thing. Try to create a profile and do a cross-section of those two hills there. What you do is figure out what each of these contours represents, what elevation they represent. And then once you have that, you can drop down and mark a dot on the plot. Move over, draw a straight line. This is where the ruler comes in. Draw a straight line. You can do it electronically though too, and mark the elevation. So you should see, it should be some structure where there's a hill here and there's a hill over here. But I want you to plot it accurately. Then we add some color to the topo maps, and this gets more realistic. And then I'm going to stop real quick, just a second. Same thing, it asks you, look at what's going on here. Here's a stream. Notice the contours are doing that same thing. They're making a V shape. So notice that about the V shapes there. That will help you with the other questions. And it asks you, what are these things, these boxes? Does anyone know what those boxes represent? Or have a guess? Oh, this is a road, by the way. The two black lines, that's a road. I'll let you think about what those boxes might be. Okay. Then 2 more of a similar area in Seattle. It's showing you the index contours that we've talked about already. This is asking you, it's asking you questions about the map. And so you need to kind of look through the colors to see the contours, find one of the index contours that's marked. There's one. Does that say 300? Does it say 200? God, can't see exactly. Anyway, you can enhance this. We can zoom in actually to like 200. There, that says 200. That says 200. Okay, so figure out what the contour interval is, and then tell me the elevations of various features. So you're going to interpret the map some more. Same thing here, more interpretation of the contours. I'm giving you a selection of different kinds of geomorphic features, so landforms to look at. And then the very last part is to find your own topographic map, and you get a couple links and there are a few questions about it. And that's it. And I'm going to stop talking now because we've been going a long time. So like I said, if you can make progress, if you could get yourself, like go through those snippets and get to this part, so do parts 1 and 2 before next week, that would be super. Shoot me any questions. You can put them in the Q&A forum. You can email me if you don't want to put them in the Q&A forum. That's okay. But I'm going to put them without your name there. And then bring what you've done to class with you next week. Feel free to go ahead and upload your lab 1, that first part, to iLearn if you're done with it and you just want to get it off your hands. That's fine. And we can call this like the lab we're working on now. Okay? Thanks for coming to class, you guys. Thanks for participating. You did a great job in the breakout rooms. I'll see you Tuesday. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye. Stick around if you got questions.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.